Ever get that feeling like there's this whole other conversation happening, like just beneath the surface? How come some people can just like get others to go along with stuff?
Yeah.
So today, that's what we're diving into, language patterns. We're going deep with this book, Mind Control Language Patterns by Dantalion Jones.
Oh, interesting.
And look, before anyone starts thinking we're handing out like supervillain starter kits or something,
Right.
this is more about, self-defense, like becoming aware of how language, it can be this sneaky thing. It can nudge you, persuade you, or even, as Jones claims, it can straight up control minds.
Yeah, and what we found so interesting is this isn't like your stereotypical hypnosis thing, with the whole swinging pocket watch.
Right.
These patterns that Jones lays out, they kind of operate under the radar. They sort of bypass your conscious defenses, and then, boom, they're influencing your thoughts and your emotions without you even realizing it.
So it's like linguistic ninja moves or something?
Exactly. Linguistic ninja moves. I like that. And where did these patterns even come from? Well, Jones traces them back to, wait for it, the pickup artist community.
No way. Seriously.
Oh, yeah.
So we're talking about the masters of seduction using like Jedi mind tricks on people.
Pretty much.
That's hilarious. But also kind of brilliant when you think about it. It makes sense, right? Because they're all about using language to build that rapport and influence.
Exactly. Think of it like really early conversational hypnosis,
Yeah.
But here's the thing. These techniques, they didn't just stay on the single scene. They've spread everywhere. We're talking advertising, politics,
Oh, wow.
even your everyday conversations. It's kind of scary.
Okay, so this is way bigger than just cheesy pickup lines. We're talking like these patterns are everywhere.
Everywhere. Jones, he calls them a form of covert hypnotic suggestion. Like they're working beneath your awareness to guide you down a particular path without you ever realizing you've been led.
Okay, I'm with you, but let's break this down a bit, yeah. Can you give me an example? Like, what does one of these covert patterns actually look like in the wild,
All right, so let's take presuppositions. Think of it this way. You're embedding an assumption inside a normal statement, making it seem totally unquestionable.
So instead of asking, do you want to learn more?
You'd say, as you continue to learn, see, boom.
Yeah.
You've already planted the idea that they are learning, whether they plan to or not.
That is so sneaky and kind of genius.
Right. It's subtle but powerful. And then there's another one, shifting verb tenses. Have you noticed how if you talk about a problem in the past tense, suddenly it doesn't seem so bad?
Oh, wow. Yeah, like I was stressed about that presentation versus I am stressed. Just saying it like that, it does shift how you see it, even if it's just a little.
Exactly. I mean, our brains are wired to make stories out of everything, to try and make sense of things, right?
Right.
And verb tenses, that's like sneaking in and rewriting those stories without anyone even noticing.
Sneaky. Okay, so we've got sneaky assumptions, time-bending verbs. What other kind of linguistic tools are we talking about here? What's in this covert arsenal?
Let's talk embedded commands, okay?
Oh, yeah.
So imagine I'm trying to get you to relax. Instead of saying relax, all direct and bossy, I might say, just think about how relaxed you're feeling right now. And I'd put a little emphasis on the word relaxed.
Oh, wow. It's like you're whispering right to my subconscious or something.
It's really wild how our brains just pick up on these little cues,
Yeah.
And it's not just about single words either. Jones talks about this one pattern, and it's almost laughable how simple it is. It just uses the word because, but you would not believe how effective it can be.
Okay, now you have to tell me, because how can a word as simple as because be a mind control tool?
Well, it all comes down to our need to feel like things make sense, we want justification, even if it's the flimsiest reason ever.
Okay.
Just tacking on a because can seriously increase your chances of getting someone to do what you ask. It's crazy.
So instead of just being like, can you hand me that report, I'd say.
Can you hand me that report because I need to look at it?
Oh,
I know. It seems obvious when you say it like that. But honestly, adding that little because changes the whole game.
Wild. We humans are so easily swayed.
It's true. We want things to be orderly, to have reasons, even if those reasons are totally on the surface. And Jones, he argues that these patterns, they tap right into that. Oh, and here's another one that messes with me. The X means Y pattern. This is where you just decide that some action or event means something, even if there's zero actual connection.
Okay, now I am officially creeped out. What's a real world example of that?
All right, picture this. You're talking to a salesperson, and they say, the fact that you're still asking questions means you're really serious about finding the right solution.
Okay.
See what they did there? They just connected asking questions to being serious, even though those two things, they don't have to go together at all.
But it's so sneaky. It's like they're just casually dropping an idea into your head without you even realizing it.
Exactly. And once you start seeing these patterns, you realize, like, whoa, they are everywhere.
So this isn't about us becoming master manipulators, right? This is about knowing when these tactics are being used on us.
Exactly. Knowledge is power. Right? Jones's whole thing is that once you understand how persuasion works, it's way harder to be, like, tricked by it.
Yeah.
You become a more conscious communicator overall, more careful about what influences you let into your life.
Okay, I'm definitely seeing the value in this linguistic self-defense idea. But Jones doesn't stop at these individual techniques, does he? He goes even deeper into like the big picture of linguistic influence, right?
You're right, he does. He talks about this really intriguing concept called parts. And it's this idea that we all have different parts inside us, and each part has its own, like, job or purpose.
Okay.
But here's where it gets really interesting. He gives examples of how you can actually use language to talk to these different parts in someone's mind.
Wait, hold on. Are you saying you can like have a conversation with the different sides of someone's personality? How does that even work?
Okay, so picture this. Imagine someone struggling with procrastination, right?
Relatable.
Right. So a skilled communicator might say something like, there's a part of you that knows how important this task is, a part that's ready to take action and get it done.
Ah, I see. You're like appealing to that motivated, get stuff done part of the person.
Precisely. And what's fascinating is that Jones argues that you can even use this parts language to talk about, like, tougher emotions, things like guilt or insecurity.
Wow.
He gives all these examples of how this kind of language can either, like, help someone process those feelings or, in the wrong hands, be used to manipulate them.
Okay, that is both super cool and kind of scary at the same time. It's like we've all got these internal levers, and if you know the right words to say, you can just control people.
It's the double-edged sword of language,
Okay.
It's powerful stuff. The more we understand these patterns, the better equipped we are to, like, navigate this linguistic landscape. It's a jungle out there.
So we're talking about being more discerning listeners, right? Like recognizing when someone might be trying to appeal to these different parts of us.
Exactly.
What other advanced techniques does Jones get into?
So he introduces this whole concept of presuppositions of permanence.
Presuppositions of permanence.
It's a mouthful, I know.
Yeah.
It's basically using language to make it seem like something is, going to last, like it's enduring.
Okay, break that down for me. How does that play out in a real conversation?
All right, let's say you're a company, and you're trying to build customer loyalty, right? You might say something like, our commitment to customer service is unwavering.
Okay.
You see how that kind of plants this seed that their satisfaction is a long-term guarantee, not just a one-time thing.
Ah, I get it. It's subtly shifting their whole perception of the entire customer experience. That's clever.
Right. And it works on that emotional level too,
Mm-hmm.
Someone might say, the joy you're feeling right now will stay with you long after you finish this podcast. Again, that subtle suggestion that the feeling is going to stick around, it can really influence how people experience things.
Okay, I'm starting to think about all the times I've been like subtly manipulated by this kind of language without even realizing it.
Oh, it happens to all of us. And Jones would say, becoming aware of it. That's the first step to, like, taking back control,
So it's not about becoming immune to influence, but understanding what those influences are.
Exactly. We're all susceptible to these patterns. The goal is to be more conscious of how they work, how they change our perceptions, so we can make informed choices about how we respond,
So we've talked about sneaky presuppositions, hidden commands, and now this parts thing and permanence techniques. Does Jones offer any way to organize all of this information? Some kind of framework?
He does. He goes deep into something called meta programs.
Meta programs. Okay.
Basically, he says these are like deep-seated patterns of thinking and behavior that we're usually totally unaware of. They're running in the background, shaping how we see and interact with the whole world.
So it's like everyone's walking around with their own unique operating system.
Exactly. And these meta programs, they can get complex. But Jones believes that if you can understand them, you can dramatically improve your ability to communicate and influence people.
Okay, you've definitely got my attention. What kind of meta programs are we talking about here? Give me some examples.
So one example is the Towards Away From meta program. This one basically describes whether someone is driven more by seeking pleasure or avoiding pain.
Ah, so some people are motivated by carrots and others are more motivated by, the fear of the stick.
Exactly. And if you can spot this pattern in someone, You can tailor your whole approach. Let's say someone's motivated by avoiding pain. You'd emphasize the negative consequences of not doing something.
Makes sense. What other meta programs are out there?
Another one is the internal-external meta program. This one's all about how people look for validation.
Okay.
Some people totally rely on their own judgment, their gut feeling, but others, they need that constant reassurance from the outside world.
So someone with an internal meta program would be like self-assured, trusting their own instincts, and someone with an external meta program would be more worried about what everyone else thinks.
Exactly. And Jones would say that this is key to really connecting with people and influencing them. Imagine you're trying to persuade someone with a strong external meta program. You wouldn't just hit them with facts and logic.
Right.
You'd back it up with testimonials, social proof, stuff like that.
It's like you're speaking their language. You're tapping into their internal wiring.
Exactly. And Jones, he goes through a whole bunch of these meta programs, and each one gives you these crazy insights into how people think and make decisions.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. This is like, I don't know, having a cheat sheet for human behavior or something.
It kind of is. That's the power of these language patterns. They give you this glimpse behind the curtain, You get to see the subconscious machinery driving everything.
Right.
And the more we understand these patterns, the more effectively we can communicate, influence, connect with people. Pretty incredible when you think about it.
So what's next? Where do we go from here?
Well, the cool thing about Jones is he doesn't just leave you with all this theory.
Okay.
He gives you practical techniques. You can actually use this stuff to become a more persuasive, more influential communicator.
All right, let's talk strategy. What kind of techniques are we talking about? How do we use these patterns in our own lives?
So he starts with some foundational patterns that you can use in a lot of different situations. One technique he calls the IU shift. It's a subtle way to get someone to actually feel what you're describing.
Okay, I like where this is going. How does the IU shift work?
Basically, you start by talking about your own experience using I statements, right? And then you seamlessly transition to you as if the other person is already feeling the same thing.
Ooh, sneaky. So instead of just saying, learning about these patterns is fascinating, I'd say.
Exactly. You'd say something like, I remember being so fascinated when I first learned about these patterns, and you can feel that same sense of curiosity building within you right now.
Wow. You're not just stating a fact, you're drawing them into your world.
Precisely. And if you deliver it with the right tone and body language, it can be incredibly persuasive.
Okay, the IU shift is officially going in my linguistic toolbox. What other persuasion tricks does Jones have up his sleeve?
Another good one is called cost and value. It's a way of talking about things where you emphasize the value of something over how much it costs.
Ah, it's like that classic credit card commercial. Wedding ring, $1,500. Wedding dress, $2,200. A lifetime of memories. Priceless.
Exactly. You're focusing on the intangible stuff, the emotional payoff, not the cold, hard cash.
And I bet you could use this technique in some pretty messed up ways too, right? Like downplaying the risks of a bad investment by just focusing on the potential profits.
Oh, absolutely. Like any tool, these patterns can be used for good or evil. It all comes down to intention.
Right. So it's not just about being more persuasive. It's about recognizing when someone might be using these techniques on us.
Exactly. It's about understanding the game, and then deciding how you want to play.
This is amazing. It's like having a secret weapon for dealing with difficult conversations and stuff.
It really is. It's all about understanding the psychology behind persuasion. You learn how to get past those initial roadblocks and create a space for genuine connection.
Okay, so let's say we've mastered the whole evasive agreement thing.
Sure.
What other objection handling techniques does Jones give us?
He talked about this pattern called, and this one's a little out there, any intelligent person would.
Okay, that one does sound a little intense.
It can be. Basically, it's about appealing to someone's sense of, intelligence, common sense.
Yeah.
You're implying that if they disagree with you, they must be lacking in those areas.
Oh, wow. So it's like you're saying any intelligent person would totally agree with me without actually saying those words out loud.
Exactly. It can be really effective, especially if you're subtle about it. But yeah, it can definitely be used in some manipulative ways.
Yeah, I can see that.
Which is why Jones keeps coming back to ethics, throughout the whole book. It's something we should all keep in mind.
So we're learning how to be more persuasive and how to do it ethically.
Exactly. It's about using these patterns responsibly, being aware of how powerful they can be.
This is all so fascinating, but I have to be honest, I am feeling a bit overwhelmed. There's a lot to remember.
I hear you. It's a lot to process. But Jones, he's really good about giving you a roadmap. He even has techniques for, like, shifting people's deeply held beliefs and influencing behavior using, like, straight-up psychology and hypnosis.
Okay, you're going to have to tell me more about that. We'll dive into those advanced techniques right after this quick break. All right, so right before the break, we were getting into some pretty wild territory, like dismantling beliefs and even like influencing behavior.
Yeah, it definitely gets intense. Jones, he introduces this system that he calls sleight of mouth. And it's basically a whole bunch of patterns designed to, like, challenge and maybe even change those really deep-seated beliefs that people hold on to.
Sleight of mouth. Okay, that sounds like some kind of magician's trick. How does that work in real life?
Think of it like verbal reframing, okay? So it's not about attacking someone's beliefs head on, because that usually just makes them, like, double down.
Right.
Instead, you're kind of subtly shifting their perspective, right? Like guiding them to reevaluate their own assumptions.
Okay, now you've got me interested. Give me an example.
Okay, let's say someone's really gung-ho about this idea that competition is the key to success.
Right.
That's their belief.
Okay.
A sleight-of-mouth pattern might sound something like, so you're saying that cooperation and collaboration, those can never lead to anything good.
Oh, I see what you did there. You're pointing out, like, the holes in their belief without directly saying, you're wrong.
Exactly. Or you could use a totally different pattern to, like, totally reframe the belief. You could say, what if true success is actually about, like, balancing healthy competition with good collaboration? You know, finding that sweet spot.
It's like linguistic gymnastics, right? You're shifting the whole conversation without them even noticing.
That's a great way to put it. And get this, Jones lays out, like, 18 different sleight-of-mouth patterns. Each one has its own way of challenging and transforming those deeply held beliefs. It's really cool.
Okay, I'm definitely adding this book to my reading list. This is like next level communication stuff.
It really is. And believe it or not, he doesn't stop there. Jones, he digs into even more advanced stuff. Things like operant conditioning.
Hold on. Operant conditioning, isn't that like how we train animals, reward the good behavior, discourage the bad?
Exactly. But Jones's whole point is that those same principles, they totally apply to humans too. Like we're constantly subconsciously shaping each other's behavior just by how we react to things.
Okay, that's both fascinating and a little creepy, if I'm being honest. So you're saying we're all just being, like, subconsciously trained by the people around us all the time?
It's more common than you think. And it's not always a bad thing either. Think about it. We naturally reinforce certain behaviors in our relationships all the time without even thinking about it.
That's true. Like, when my husband makes me laugh, I definitely want to hang out with him more.
Exactly. And when you really understand how operant conditioning works, you can start being more aware of how you're shaping other people's behavior and how they're shaping yours too. It's pretty eye-opening.
Okay, my mind is officially blown. So we've got belief-busting sleight-of-mouth patterns, behavior-bending operant conditioning. What else does Jones have in store for us?
So he talks about this other technique called distracted sentences. And it's about using these, like, totally random phrases that don't seem related at all to, like, throw the listener off their game.
Wait, seriously, so I would just throw in these random things like, man, I wonder what the weather's like in Atlantis right now.
Yeah. It sounds strange, but it can really work. These distracted sentences, they're meant to create, like, this little blip in the listener's attention. It's like this tiny window where you can slip something past their conscious mind and right into their subconscious.
So while they're still trying to figure out if Atlantis even has weather, I swoop in with my suggestion or command.
Precisely. It's a way to sneak past those defenses and, like, plant those ideas right where they'll grow.
This is getting seriously next level.
It is. And if that wasn't wild enough, Jones has a whole chapter dedicated to what he calls military mind control language patterns.
Okay, now you're messing with me, right? Military mind control. This isn't like a spy movie.
I know, it sounds crazy, but Jones is convinced that these techniques are the real deal. Like, they're straight out of military interrogation and psychological warfare tactics.
Okay, I'm kind of scared, but also totally intrigued. What does one of these military mind control patterns sound like?
So one example he calls the hospital pattern, and it's designed to tap into someone's fear of loss. Okay? You subtly remind them of a time when they lost someone close to them. It's a dark technique, not gonna lie, but Jones says it can be scary effective at, like, breaking down resistance and getting people to comply.
Whoa. I can definitely see how that would be like a high stakes kind of thing. Not exactly appropriate for casual conversation.
Exactly.
Hmm.
It's so important to remember that language. It's powerful. Jones really stresses the ethical side of all this throughout the book. Like, we have to use these patterns responsibly.
So it's not just about being a more effective communicator, it's about being a more ethical one, too.
Exactly. Using these patterns thoughtfully and being aware of how they can be used, for good or for bad.
Well, this entire deep dive has been quite a journey. We've gone from sneaky presuppositions to like straight up military mind control.
It's been wild.
And honestly, I'm leaving with a mix of I can't believe how powerful language is, and I kind of want to go practice all of this right now.
I get it. It's pretty empowering stuff.
So, what's the biggest takeaway here? What should our listeners walk away with after this deep dive?
Pay attention to the language around you. Become aware of those patterns. Notice when these techniques are being used both on you and by you. And most importantly, use your words to make the world a better place.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the fascinating and sometimes kind of scary world of language patterns. Until next time, everyone, stay curious.